Hi, I'm Gary Jackson, and I'm here reading as part of the Bad Mouths Online in the Meantime poetry reading series. Thanks to Rebecca Aronson for inviting me to contribute, and I'm just gonna jump in and read about 5 or 6 poems. I'm gonna start with a few poems from my first book, Missing Metropolis, and they are both about superheroes. This first one's titled Zorn, which references a character from the Uncanny X-Men. It's also like morning here, so I have like my coffee, and I woke up about 30 minutes ago, so I probably have morning voice. All right, Zorn. My brain is a star. When I walk downtown, people don't run, but walk fast. They know I'm a mutant, but the gravity draws them near. Things got better once I laid my hands on a woman. A car knocked her body in the air like a heated molecule and didn't bother to stop. The crowd called the ambulance, but when they saw me, my face bright as a halo, they believed I was the second coming. I touched her, and they thought I brought her back. But I told them I'm no Jesus. I simply take the good cells and fix them, discard the dead ones like flicking ash into the air. Now people won't leave me alone. I jumpstart cars, bring dead dogs to life. A girl brought me her dry goldfish. How could I refuse? I worked double shifts for the emergency ward, was even charged with healing the ozone, but I couldn't get my hands on it. Last week, a burgundy gargoyle galloped around town and ate a few people down on 56th and MLK. They came out with shotguns and rifles to put him down. They blew out his knees. I made my way through the crowd, touched him, felt the pulse's warm glow like a maggot in the sun. He was a mutant no older than 3. In that phase, children test the world by tasting it. But when I told them he was an infant, they still fired. I wondered what his gift would have been. A week later, a woman asked if I could bring back her husband, who the boy had eaten. I told her no. She slapped me, scorched her hand, told me I was a monster. I told her there had to be something left to raise, but she knew that. They all did, or else they wouldn't have burned that boy after they killed him. I watched as their shadows, contorted by the flame's light, dance into grotesque shapes with limbs like twigs, bitten apples for heads, jagged bodies. They stomped that boy's ash into the dirt, and I longed to do more than heal. Good morning, by the way. Good poems. Good morning poems, I guess. Here's the next one. Home from work, I face my newborn mutant son. I hold my 6-pound baby boy in my hands, pink as sand. His skin is glass. This is not a metaphor. My wife did not hemorrhage alone on our wood floor for metaphor. Even now he squirms, his small cries are like the whine of well-worn brakes. He cuts into my palms and slides in the creased blood. I see his tiny organs getting used to their work, while my wife, bled out, grows cold. What paper bag test can this boy pass? His skin reflects the white of my eyes, and I know he cannot last. For a moment before I drop him, I wonder how he'd make it. Even if his skin does harden to crystal, to diamond, it won't be enough. And I could not bear the sight of him hanging like an ornament, a glass boy from a tree, or find him cracked open, splintered in the street. As he shatters on the floor, everything from his heart to lungs freezes like the hands of a wristwatch at ground zero. I'm gonna take that moment to segue into some newer poems. Uh, Most of these poems, if everything goes according to plan, should be coming out in my second book, which will be forthcoming next year, fall 2021. I'll make sure to give more details once things get a little bit more nailed down. But that's the hope. So a lot of the poems I write about, or I shouldn't say a lot, but one of the themes in the first book is about my sister who passed away when I was young, and kind of my own grief and my mother's grief. And that's a thread that I kind of pick up and run through these new poems as well. And in fact, the newer poems kind of focus more on my mother than me, which was a conscious choice. So I'll start with this poem called holoprosencephaly, which is the illness my sister had. And it's a definition poem, which I feel like I should say because the poem opens with the word noun, and if you don't have the poem in front of you, you're probably like, what is he talking about? So it's a definition poem. It also has a song lyric. I always forget to contextualize, and the song lyric, when you hear it, is actually from Queen's Princes of the Universe. Holoprosencephaly. Noun. Because I never understood. I called it Down syndrome, handicap, retarded, disease that destroys the brain, the body, before it has a chance to fall into this world. Wet and cold days waiting on the bus and its long mechanical tongue rolling towards us. Me in my mittens, my sister in her wheelchair, our mother behind us both, pushing us towards its teeth, not out of cruelty, but because all children are eventually swallowed. Tomorrow I'll be the stupid boy holding a bag of chips out to the boy with one eye on his forehead, the other brown like mine. He sees right through me, knows that I'm afraid. My mother hits me upside the head and demands I share in this waiting, while my sister, her daughter, is held down on a table, racked by machines and needles to determine why she is still alive. This was supposed to be a definition poem, but I'd rather define the shape of my ignorance, my mother's loss, my own silent betrayal when years later, out of nowhere, my mother said, I never meant for us to grow up so fast. Apologizing for the simple fact we were alive. I forgot my tongue. I went back the years when my mother, younger than I am now, raising 2 children, would sometimes burst into song. I am immortal, I have inside me blood of kings. Made me a believer that be it flood or fire, hurricane or heart attack, gunshot or simply the body giving itself back to dust, we can never die, save slowly until there is only one of us left. I will mix it up a little bit and read a poem that actually takes place. It's based on a favorite bar of mine. I have a lot of bar poems in this new collection, but this one takes place at a favorite bar of mine in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which seems appropriate, considering the origins of the reading series that I'm a part of. And the name of the bar is called Anodyne. And so this poem is also titled Anodyne. Bourbon in hand, you believe the world will always be this strange and wonderful. A dog barks by the pool tables. You throw one thigh across my lap and let your glass draw your hand against mine. The dark honey crashes against the rim. A waitress comes and asks if we'd like more. We nod and raise our downed glasses before drowning. Want burns our throats. The only thing to cool this is to spit in my mouth before we smolder back to clay. Outside, music dies as it stumbles out of the club. Let us celebrate how distant our bodies are from home, how anything can be exotic. The street view window, the cracked glass tabletops, our own skin. Let tonight end somewhere in foreign territory. Help me believe the lie. The world is too vast to ever be familiar. I think I'm just going to close out with two poems. And it also seems appropriate since I spent a good amount of time in Albuquerque, and now I'm spending, as of now, I think about 7 years in Charleston, South Carolina. I should read a poem about my time here, which is not about drinking, and instead is about a poetry reading I did a couple years ago. And all I can say is that this is based on a true story. After the reading, a woman walked up and asked how the young black poet the month before could shake with such anger during his reading. Is it really that bad? It can't be that bad, can it? I told her it was, and she said, maybe for you in Kansas, but here in Charleston, a nice black man held the door open for me and my friends because people respect each other here, and those things you write about don't happen anymore. I live here too, I reminded her, and by here I meant the world. But she was already off and spouting about some professor that was BLACK black, not black like you. And when I was in college in the 70s, I couldn't understand why on earth he would come here to teach in a state where people just don't see that kind of black. The woman serving wine at the reception exchanged a look with me, each of us with arched brows asking the other, "You believe this shit?" Then another woman tried to help, said it doesn't matter what color anyone is, as long as you're willing to listen to one another's experience. But those young people who identify as different genders are beyond me. I must have been in a goddamn sitcom when yet another well-meaning woman realized they were all starting to look pretty bad and tried to shut the whole thing down. Let's talk about the art on the walls. How good it is to host such a diverse lineup of poets. How everything's always been this awful. But it's getting better, isn't it? Getting better. Before I read this last poem, I just wanted to thank Rebecca Aronson again for having me be part of the Badmouth reading series this season. And I wish I could be hanging out with you all in person back in Albuquerque. And also thanks to you for watching this video when I know there's so many other things you could be watching and probably are watching. I myself will probably watch a cat video or two just to calm myself down. Where is it? So the last one I'm going to read is titled Elegy, that was already done before, which is a newish poem, but it also in some ways serves as a good coda for the first book that I wrote, even though it's not in that book. And it's about a friend. Elegy that was already done before. I'm trying to teach these kids about elegy when one of them asks, "How do you grieve?" Everyone answers, crying, screaming in the crook of your elbow, trying to muffle your soul when all you're doing is making it harder for the dead to hear what you have to say. Only one student says, "Drink." I put one toe in and ask, "What?" He says, "Jack Daniels, because I don't have to think, and now I'm thinking about ghosts again." Last month, I talked to your mother on the phone. My mother wanted to show her my book, But ain't that like rubbing it in someone's face that one of us is dead and the other got famous for it? Yet here we are, you're still gone, and I'm a fool to think the last poem was the last one I'd write about you. At parties, people who don't know that too much ash sours the soil ask about you. I bury 2 fingers in my temple, 1 fingernail buried under the skin, the other not far behind. Everything is about laws, about stories, about superheroes, about trying to show these motherfucking students what an elegy is really about. It's about the student who once asked me, "Who's your favorite superhero?" And I said, "Spider-Man," when I should have said, "You." That's my time. Thanks for hanging out with me. And thanks again to Rebecca and everyone else who supports or who's supporting this series. See you next time.